How late-night comics covered up Biden's decline. Corporate media's corruption echoed by Colbert and company across TV landscape. President Joe Biden wasn't capable of discharging his duties as commander-in-chief for large swathes of his single-term presidency. New reporting from the Wall Street Journal shared some, but not all, of the shocking details. The rest will likely come from tell-all tomes to be published in the coming years. Except most clear-thinking Americans already knew about Biden's cognitive decline. They saw years of cringeworthy videos where Biden couldn't speak clearly, moved haltingly, and needed basic cues to enter and exit the stage. Corporate journalists knew even more than Joe and Jane Sixpack, but they dutifully covered it up like their Democratic masters demanded. They weren't alone. Late-night comedians, the satirists tasked with speaking truth to power, played along with the ruse. A few took it further, raising funds for a president incapable of handling basic duties like holding press conferences or sitting for softball interviews. Progressive comedians like Jimmy Kimmel, John Oliver, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, and Seth Meyers pretended as if Biden was fine until a fateful debate shamed them into telling the truth. These far-left propagandists poked fun at Biden's age for most of his presidency, framing the gags as harmless riffs on senior living. Case in point, here's Colbert referencing reports that Biden's aides protected him from overexerting himself. But Biden doesn't see it that way, he added. According to aides, the president frequently reports that he feels so much younger than my age. Well, good for you, sir. You don't look one day over. Let's change the subject, Colbert joked. Haha, this isn't about an older man taking sensible precautions. Biden's restrictions went far beyond that. Here's just one example drawn from the Wall Street Journal investigation. Once concerns arose early on, Biden advisors instructed top lawmakers and allies to keep exchanges with the president short and focused, according to the Wall Street Journal. Staffers reportedly also ensured most of Biden's meetings were held later in the day, due to the president not being at his best first thing in the morning, with the option to scrap meetings entirely if he was having an off day. Imagine if a global crisis struck during such a day. Daily Beast says Colbert not funny anymore. Ironically, the Wall Street Journal published a similarly frightening article earlier in the year, noting some of the alarming issues Biden's deterioration raised. Colbert rushed to the rescue at the time, acting like a de facto White House press secretary. He's actually a political satirist carrying water for Team Biden. You heard that right, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Biden is old, Stephen Colbert said. Which, of course, could disqualify him from being president. After all, being old is a felony. There's more. This blockbuster lid-blower offer also included this little nugget explaining that Biden is someone who has both good moments and bad ones, in a clear contrast with his opponent, who only has bad ones. Meyers of NBC fame carried plenty of water on his own. The Wall Street Journal published an article yesterday that claims President Biden appears to be slipping in private meetings. He keeps saying crazy stuff that makes no sense, like, a convicted felon is beating me in the polls. Colbert also worked overtime to diminish a scathing report from special counsel Robert Hur labeling Biden an elderly man with poor memory. Voters are just going to have to choose between a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory or a contemptible, malicious elderly rapist with a poor memory. Biden and Trump are both old and have poor memories. Nothing to see here. Move along. We saw the truth differently. It was spreading like wildfire on social media. Watching political satirists ignore it felt like a special kind of cheap fake. Sometimes politically expedient monologues weren't enough. Meyers met one-on-one with Biden earlier this year in an attempt to downplay the age factor. That kind of propaganda messaging is priceless. Jimmy Fallon, who has turned NBC's iconic Tonight Show into an also-ran on the late-night circuit, failed to hold Biden accountable for his serial, age-related gaffes. He opted not to do damage control like Colbert and Meyers, but he also refused to alert Americans to the problem. Many late-night viewers accepted the charade at face value. Sadly, John Oliver, unlike his late-night colleagues, mostly ignored the age issue. Apparently, he and his writing team never saw any of those embarrassing Biden videos. The worst came earlier this year when both Colbert and ABC's Jimmy Kimmel literally passed the hat around for Biden's re-election campaign. Both comedians saw Biden up close and said nothing about his diminished state. Kimmel even defended Biden after the leader froze up at the end of their fundraising appearance. The corrupt corporate media had Kimmel's back with the lie, publishing a phony fact-check and echoing Team Biden's cheap fake attack line. We know that Oscar winner George Clooney noticed Biden's decline during their fundraising appearance together. The star held his tongue until political expediency interceded. Bill Maher, the most respectable of the liberal late-night crew, hit both sides of Biden's age issue. Earlier in Biden's presidency, Maher suggested the president lean into his wizened state. Later, Maher worried the age factor could hurt Biden's chances of defeating Trump a second time. He suggested the president admit his flaws and focus on policy. Maher, despite his ability to call out his own side with regularity, downplayed the obvious cognitive decline most Americans noticed with horror. Colbert and company will spend the next 4 years holding Team Trump accountable. They'll lean into plenty of fake news along the way, if past is prologue. They hope we'll forget how they not only ignored the biggest scandal of the decade, they actively made it worse. Not a chance, gang.